All right, well, it does look like it's 12 o'clock, so I just wanted to be respectful of everyone's time, and I will get started here. We appreciate everyone joining us here for the next round of Wind River's enLightning Round webinar series. The beginning of the year, I know everyone has their New Year's resolutions. A lot of times it's trimming the fat, this time being out of your credit card processing program. So I wanted to kind of walk through some things that we see when it comes to reviewing statements and how you may be able to look at your own processing program and eliminate some unnecessary fees. Just quickly about Wind River Financial. We are a family-owned business since 1999. We're based out of Madison, Wisconsin. Really been known for our customer service, and with that, we see it as our really kind of something we should be doing is educating those other businesses here in the Midwest, especially those businesses here in Wisconsin, being a local resource when it comes to credit card processing. I think a lot of times folks look at credit card processing, think it's pretty cut and dry. There's a rate and that's it. But as you'll see in this presentation, there's always things that are changing, especially when it comes to the world of fees. So we just wanted to pass along some of that education and again be here as a resource if we can. When it comes to fat on statements or those excess fees that folks are looking to cut, really there's three key areas. There's the transaction costs, the monthly fees, and then kind of what we bundle into customer service. And we'll touch on each one of these three areas and what to look for on your monthly credit card statement. I think over the past couple of years, a lot of the statements have gone from showing up in the mail to going online. So if you're having trouble finding your credit card statement, again, that's something that we can help with depending on who your processor is. We can help point you in the right direction of how to access that statement. So again, here to help, here to be a resource for you. The first piece, transaction costs. Our industry is really kind of known for what we call a rate cycle or the rate roller coaster. A lot of times in our industry, a processor will come and either undercut what you're paying or offer you a very low rate to get you in the door. A lot of times that's also going to be tied in with a contract. What usually happens is that fee then starts to go up, similar to the cable bills. Then you notice your fees have gone up, you call, the processor drops it, and then it starts going back up again, and it really kind of starts to look like a roller coaster. So we call that the rate roller coaster. So that's why it's important to not only make sure you're getting a good deal when you sign up, but 6 months and a year and 2 years and 3 years in, and especially with some of the merger and acquisition activity we've seen, it's important to keep an eye on your credit card processing statement. Another way that you can look at your transaction cost is if you are in a processing program or a pricing schedule that is what's called bundled or tiered, say 99 out of 100 times you're going to be overpaying. And the reason is this type of processing, the processing fees is really in the processor's best interest. Now here's an example of a recent statement that we looked at, and you can see here there's three levels. There's a qualified rate, which is the lowest, 2.39%. And in talking with merchants that are in these types of programs, a lot of times they're told, here's your qualified rate. It's going to be 2.39%. A lot of cases, that's going to be a very great rate. So a lot of times it's kind of look here at the shiny object and not always, showing you what the other rates are associated with that. So the way this type of pricing works is there's a low qualified rate, there's a mid qualified rate. In this case, it's 4.18%, and then a non-qualified rate, 6.18%. Now, what happens typically, and you can see here on this program, over time, these are really buckets that the processor decides what card type is going to go into which card type. Now, there are over 400 different card brand fees, so you can see it's not always as cut and dry with there's three rates. There's over 400 rates that are really being put into these three buckets. You can see on this statement where 2/3 of the volume is falling in that highest non-qualified bucket. And that is very typical in these programs. A lot of times your quote unquote rates will stay the same, but the processor will move something from qualified to mid-qualified to non-qualified. And a lot of times when we look at statements where there's a bundled or tiered structure like this, most of that volume is in those higher tiers. So again, if you look at your statement and you see words like qualified, mid-qualified, non-qualified, there's more likely than not an opportunity to to lower your fees with a more transparent fee structure. That fee structure is what we call cost plus or interchange plus pricing. I wanted to show these two sample statements as well. You can see the circles that we have here, the 1.03 and the 0.01. The numbers look completely different, but really that's the same rate. And what that is the top is 1.03%, and on the bottom it is 0.01 basis point, or the number. So it's 103 basis points or 100 basis points. The number on the top looks a lot bigger than the number on the bottom, but really it really comes out to the same thing. I'd say if you're looking at your statement and you see anything over really 75 basis points, so on the top would be 0.75 or on the bottom 0.0075, I'd say anything over that would be overpayment in our eyes. Really, that's where Wind River starts out a very new business. It's a volume-driven business, so anywhere that you're seeing over 1% in markup above the card brand fees, there is some overpayment. Now, historically, this is where the additional costs have come from in our industry, and a lot of times, you see the bubble here, make sure to read the fine print. A lot of times, that's where the processor is going to notify you, starting February 1st, your assessment is going up 30 basis points. A basis point, again, being 1/100%. So make sure you read the fine print. It's not always going to be notified there, but most processors, if they are going to change your rates, they are going to put that in the fine print either at the beginning of your statement or at the end of your statement. Monthly fees. Some of you may have attended our sneaky fee webinar that we did a few months ago. I think really historically, the transaction cost is where a lot of processors were adding in fees or raising fees. But really, we're seeing monthly fees as a new area where a lot of processors are either increasing fees or adding fees. One that we want to highlight here is the risk assessment fee. We're seeing this on statements. Some cases it is for your card not present transactions. We've seen where some processors are adding an additional 1% markup. Other processors are adding this as really a way to help cover their portfolio risk by passing along a fee to each individual merchant. So as a merchant, if you're in an industry where there's not a whole lot of risk for the processor and you're seeing this fee, you're really helping them offset some of that risk. So again, a fee that's probably been added within the last year, and again, that's something that we think you should be paying. A couple other common fees: PCI non-compliance fee. Again, PCI compliance stands for Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. There's really two pieces of that. There's the annual self-assessment questionnaire, and then quarterly vulnerability scans if you're not leveraging point-to-point encryption. So really, if you're not doing those things, you may be seeing a non-compliance fee. We've seen those range from anywhere between $25 and $125 a month. There's the financial aspect of it, but there's also some risk that your business is at too. So if you're seeing PCI non-compliance fees on your statement, again, that's something probably you want to address, not just for the financial standpoint, but for the protection of your business as well. Another fee that we're seeing is called the CE Suite. I think it's Customer Experience Suite. A lot of processors are adding this as kind of an opt-in fee. Here's a 30-day free trial. That free trial is being, again, marked in the fine print at the beginning or the end of the statement. You have 30 days, you need to call them, you need to call the 800 number, sit on hold, say, hey, we don't want this. Otherwise, they're going to continue to charge it month over month. A lot of times, this is going to be a set of tools that are really meant, if you were a large restaurant, per se, in Chicago, that really wanted to understand where your customers are coming from, where to market from, may have some value. But I think a lot of folks we talk to don't even know that they have access to this. Once they find out the tools that are in there, they really don't see a whole lot of benefit, but they've been paying for these tools for 6 months, a year, just because they didn't see that they needed to opt out of those. When it comes to customer service fees, I think there's a couple different ways. The first is, are you being charged on net sales or gross sales? If you're in a business that does quite a bit of refunds, or really any refunds, it's important to understand, are you being charged on the net amount of your sales or the gross amount? I know in the past, Wind River's run into situations where a competitor is charging on gross sales, and a lot of times the merchant does not end up getting not only the assessment back, but they're also being charged the interchange. So a lot of times, if you're being charged on gross sales, your rate can stay the same somewhere else, and you can end up having quite a bit of savings by working with someone who's going to only charge you on your net sales. Monthly minimums is another thing that we're seeing out in the market where you might get a low rate. This is, I'd say, especially important for businesses doing under $20,000 a month in credit card processing. A lot of times you'll be offered a low rate, but you need to sell at least $20,000 or $25,000 a month in order to hit those minimums, or you're going to be charged for selling that amount anyway. So a lot of times that low rate is, again, kind of a shiny object. Look here, and the fees are going to catch up to you on the back end. So if you see a monthly minimum on your statement, again, there's a way to cut out some of that fat in your processing. A little bit deeper, when you go into your credit card statement, most processors will list the types of cards that you accepted that month. Anytime you see the word standard, electronic, non-qualified, IRF, enhanced, those are what are called downgrades. I'd say for most businesses, the most common reason for a downgrade is in a card not present transaction by not passing along the billing street number, billing zip code, and in some cases a PO number. Now what happens is when the card is not present, you can still run that transaction. It is just going to cost you more, and that is what these card descriptions mean. So anytime you're seeing these on your statement, again, that's an area where you're paying about 0.3 to 0.4% more than if you were to pass that data along. So if you are doing quite a bit of card not present activity and not passing along that, that is definitely an area where there could be some cost savings within your credit card processing portfolio. So we kind of talked about the three areas where we see fees, at Wind River, and we really feel if you're working with a processor that's doing these things, you're in a good spot. With Wind River, we offer transparent and sustainable pricing. We stay away from that rate roller coaster. We're going to offer you something that we can stand behind. Again, a lot of times folks don't know that when you sign a contract, that's really giving the processor the power to raise your fees, but you're going to have to pay a hefty sum to get away from them. So when you're signing into a contract, in most cases, that's not rate protected. One of the big reasons Wind River does at-will agreements. When it comes down to total fees, as you can see from today's presentation, there's a lot of rates, there's a lot of fees, there's a lot of ways to talk about pricing. But at the end of the day, when you take your total fees divided by your total sales, that's your net effective rate. I'd suggest kind of keeping an eye on that number month over month. If you notice that number start going up, there's a good possibility that your processor is adding in some of these fees. With the monthly fees, again, Wind River doesn't add in these opt-out fees. If there's a new product or service, we have a conversation with our customers. If they want it, great. If they don't want it, we're not going to play the games of making them call us to opt out of something. When it comes to the customer service, our team of relationship managers does a great job monitoring those qualification rates, ensuring that the downgrades are staying as minimal as possible, and fees are staying competitive. We only charge on net sales, and we don't do monthly minimums. So if you have any questions, I know I threw a lot at you here in 15 minutes. If you're looking at your statement or even having trouble finding your statement, please reach out to me. If you see something on your statement that doesn't make sense, I've been doing this for 9 years. There's still things that pop up on statements where I need to take a second look or do a little bit of research on. But I'm happy to be a local resource for you. Take a look at your statement. If you're in a good spot, I'll tell you, and I'll show you where to look on that statement for changes. And if you're not, if there's overpayment, I'll show you where that overpayment's coming from, and again, answer any questions that you have. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions, or if you want to reach out to me directly afterwards. Again, here's my phone number, here's my email address, and just want to say thank you again for attending today's webinar.